Have you ever wondered why sometimes the smallest gesture can move us more than 1,000 words? Why a hand on your shoulder can make you feel understood? Or why a simple touch on your arm can calm a storm inside your chest? This is because human beings are wired for connection. We are not just creatures of logic, we are creatures of feeling. Our skin is not just a barrier, it is a gateway. It carries messages to the brain faster than speech, deeper than logic, and more powerful than argument. A single touch can create trust. A single touch can awaken desire. A single touch can say, I see you, I value you, I am with you. Think about this. From the moment we are born, touch is our first language. Before we can speak, before we can form thoughts, before we even understand the world, we understand the warmth of a hand holding us. We understand safety through touch. We understand love through touch. That is why, even as adults, touch continues to hold power over our hearts. But here is the deeper truth most people never realize. Touch is not just physical. It is psychological. It is emotional. It is spiritual. When you touch someone, you are not just pressing against their skin. You are pressing against their story, their past, their fears, and their hidden hopes. Touch reaches places words cannot go. Now imagine this, a man who carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. He walks through life silent, strong, and unshaken on the outside, but inside he carries storms, doubts, and unspoken battles. Words might not always reach him. He might not always listen when you say, I care for you. But touch goes beyond his defenses. Touch bypasses the walls he has built and goes straight to the heart. That is why knowing where and how to touch a man can change everything. And let me tell you something powerful. Silence has its own language and touch is its voice. Without a single word, you can ignite his confidence, calm his fears, or stir his deepest desires. Without saying anything, you can remind him of his worth, his strength, and his place in your world. This is not manipulation. This is not trickery. This is the natural design of human psychology. Men and women alike are wired to respond to physical connection, but for men, especially, touch can mean what words cannot. Because society tells men to hide emotions, to hold back tears, to never show weakness. But touch gives him permission to feel again. Ask yourself this: what if the secret to reaching someone you love was not in saying more, but in saying less? What if the answer was in the language of silence, the language of the skin, the language of touch? Stay with me till the end of this video, and you will discover the 5 most powerful places to touch a man, touches that awaken him without you having to say a single word. These are not random spots on the body. Each one has meaning. Each one connects to a part of his psychology. Each one unlocks emotions that words alone cannot reach. And once you know them, you will never see touch the same way again. But here is the reward. This knowledge is not only about turning a man on. No, it goes deeper. It is about connection. It is about intimacy. It is about understanding the man beneath the armor. By the end of this journey, you will hold in your hands the power to make a man feel alive in your presence. You will know how to awaken his desire, yes, but also his loyalty, his love, and his unspoken need for closeness. That is the true gift waiting for you if you stay until the last word. Remember, the strongest messages are never shouted. The deepest lessons are never written in books. And the greatest transformations do not come from long speeches. They come from the silent moments, from a gentle touch, from the unspoken but deeply felt language of presence. So let me ask you again, if touch is the first language we ever learned, why have we forgotten to use it? Why do we search for the perfect sentence, the perfect text, the perfect speech when the answer has been in our hands all along? Today you will remember. You will rediscover the hidden power of touch. Not the casual kind, not the accidental brush, but the deliberate, intentional, soul-awakening touch that speaks louder than anything else. If you are ready to learn, if you are ready to open this door, then stay with me. Because by the time we finish, you will hold a secret that most people will never understand. You will know how to move a man without words, how to awaken him without effort, and how to reach his soul without ever needing to say a single thing. Why does touch carry so much power over the human mind? Why does a simple brush of skin awaken emotions that words cannot reach? The answer lies deep within the psychology of who we are. Touch is not just physical, it is primal, it is ancient. It is the very first way our nervous system learned to understand the world. Long before we could speak, our bodies knew how to feel. The human brain processes touch in the same areas that control trust, bonding, and love. That means every time you touch someone, you are not just creating sensation, you are creating meaning. Think about it. A single touch can lower fear. It can calm the nervous system. It can reduce the feeling of loneliness. When someone places a hand on you at the right moment, your brain releases chemicals like oxytocin, the hormone of trust and bonding. That is why you suddenly feel safe. That is why the walls come down. That is why touch feels like more than skin. It feels like home. And here is what most people forget. Touch is faster than words. When you speak, words must be heard, processed, and understood. But touch bypasses the filter of logic and goes straight to the heart. It doesn't wait for explanation. It doesn't wait for permission. It lands instantly. That is why in moments of pain, silence, and a touch can heal more than 1,000 comforting sentences. Now, imagine how this truth applies to a man. Society trains him to stay quiet, to hold his emotions, to carry his battles in silence. Many men grow up hearing, be strong, don't cry, don't show weakness. And so they hide, they protect their emotions behind armor. But no matter how thick the armor, the body still responds to touch. His psychology is still wired to feel safety through it. His brain still whispers, you are not alone, the moment he is touched with intention. Touch is the permission he never gives himself. It tells him it is okay to feel. It tells him it is okay to open up. It tells him that he can let go of the tension he has carried for too long. That is why the right touch is so powerful. It does what words cannot. It enters where speeches cannot reach. Here's something remarkable. The human skin has over 5 million touch receptors. Each one is a doorway into the nervous system. Each one is a messenger to the brain. That means every touch you give can send a message of comfort, of passion, of support, of connection. The message depends on your intention. If your touch is careless, the message is empty. But if your touch is conscious, meaningful, deliberate, it becomes unforgettable. Have you noticed how a reassuring pat on the back can give someone courage they didn't know they had? Or how holding hands can make two people walk through storms without fear? That is psychology at work. Touch changes the way the brain processes stress. It transforms fear into calm. It transforms distance into closeness. It transforms silence into connection. And here is where the deepest truth lies. Men are not immune to this. In fact, they crave it, even if they never say it out loud. Every man longs for connection. Every man longs for someone who sees him beyond the armor. Every man longs for a signal that says you are valued, you are safe, you are loved. Words may not convince him, but touch will. Think of it like this. Inside every human being is a locked room, a place where their most vulnerable emotions live. Words are like keys that sometimes fit, sometimes don't. But touch, it is the master key. It unlocks that room without resistance. And once it opens, the person inside feels free to be fully themselves. That is the psychology of touch. So ask yourself, when was the last time you reached someone not with your words, but with your presence? When was the last time you touched with intention, not just with habit? Because the difference is everything. Habitual touch is background noise. Intentional touch is a symphony. One is forgotten. The other changes lives. Touch is not about control. It is not about manipulation. It is about connection. It is the bridge between two nervous systems, two hearts, two worlds. When you touch someone with presence, you are saying, I am here with you. I am not against you. I am on your side. And the human brain, designed to seek safety and belonging, opens itself completely to that message. Remember this, loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of touch. Two people can live in the same house, speak every day, share countless words, and yet one of them still feels invisible. But a single meaningful touch can end that invisibility. It says, I notice you. I choose you. I feel you. That is how deep its psychology runs. The truth is, touch is not just physical. It is emotional communication at the highest level. It is the oldest form of human reassurance. It is the most direct form of intimacy. And when used with care, it has the power to change how someone sees themselves and how they see you. So never underestimate it. Never think of it as small, because touch is not small. It is everything. It is the first language of life, and in many ways, it is the last. When two people come together, it is not words alone that keep them close. It is not promises alone that build trust. It is not conversations alone that create love. The truth is, Relationships are not held together by what we say. They are held together by what we feel. And nothing makes us feel more deeply than the power of touch. Every relationship is a constant exchange of signals. Some signals are spoken, some are silent, but the silent ones often speak the loudest. You can tell someone you care, but when you touch them with intention, they don't just hear it, they experience it. The body carries that message into the heart before the mind even has a chance to question it. Touch matters because it transforms words into reality. You can say, "I am here for you," but when your hand rests on someone's back, they believe it. You can say, "I love you," but when your fingers interlock with theirs, they feel it. You can say, "I trust you," but when you place your hand on their chest, they know it. Touch is not an accessory to love. It is the evidence of it. Think about how relationships fade. Most often it is not because words run out. It is because touch disappears. Couples stop holding hands. They stop embracing. They stop resting a hand on each other in moments of silence. And slowly the connection weakens. Because while words can continue, the body feels the absence of touch. And when the body feels starved, the heart begins to question the bond. Touch is the food of intimacy. Without it, relationships wither. With it, they grow stronger. It nourishes trust. It deepens love. It tells your partner, "You are not alone. You are safe with me. You are valued." And every time that message is delivered through touch, the brain records it as truth. Here is what human psychology shows us. Consistent, intentional touch strengthens the bond between two people more than any long conversation can. Why? Because touch bypasses resistance. Words can be doubted. Promises can be questioned. But when you are held, when you are touched with care, the body relaxes, the heart softens, and the walls come down. That is when true closeness happens. Touch also matters because it breaks through silence. Every relationship faces moments where words fail. Sometimes pain is too deep to describe. Sometimes joy is too overwhelming to explain. Sometimes conflict makes speech impossible. In those moments, touch becomes the bridge. A hand reaching out during an argument can stop anger from turning into destruction. An embrace during sorrow can heal what no sentence could. A gentle touch during silence can say, "We are still connected, even now." Relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on presence. And touch is the ultimate form of presence. It is a way of saying, "I am here fully with you in this moment." It does not require rehearsed lines. It does not require explanations. It only requires sincerity. The truth is, love is not proven in grand speeches. Love is proven in the smallest gestures repeated daily. A touch on the hand when walking side by side, a palm on the back when stepping into a room together, a simple brush of the arm when passing by. These may seem small, but they tell the nervous system you matter. You are remembered. You are not forgotten. Over time, these small touches accumulate into unshakable trust. And yet, many people underestimate it. They believe gifts or elaborate words are the foundation of love. But look deeper. Why do the happiest couples often look so simple on the surface? It is because they never stopped touching each other. They never stopped holding hands. They never stopped choosing connection through presence. Touch is not only about passion. It is about reassurance. It is about grounding the other person when life feels uncertain. It is about reminding them that they are not walking through the chaos alone. A single reassuring touch can give strength in ways even the strongest motivational speech cannot. Because it is not just heard, it is felt. Remember this, human beings can live without constant words, but not without connection. And connection is built, moment by moment, through touch. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, but quiet does not mean weak. Quiet touch is often the strongest voice in love. So if you want a relationship that lasts, do not just focus on what you say, focus on what you do with your presence. Because when words fade and when promises blur, what remains is how you made someone feel. And nothing makes someone feel more loved, more safe, and more alive than being touched with intention. Touch matters in relationships because it carries the message everyone longs to hear. You belong. You are not invisible. You are seen, you are valued, you are loved. And when that message is delivered again and again, not through speeches, but through the simple, deliberate language of touch, the bond becomes unbreakable. If touch is the language of connection, then the hand is the very first chapter of that language. The hand is where presence begins. It is where closeness is silently spoken. and it is often the first place where walls start to come down. Think about how powerful it feels when someone takes your hand. It does not require words. It does not require preparation. Yet instantly something shifts inside. The heartbeat steadies. The nervous system calms. The body says, I am not alone. That is the psychology of the hand. The hand represents action, strength, and movement. It is what we use to create, to build, to defend, to fight. But when the hand is touched, when fingers are interlocked, when palms meet, it transforms from a tool of action into a symbol of connection. It says, you don't have to carry everything by yourself. I am here with you. For a man, the hand carries a unique weight. Since childhood, he has been taught to use his hands as instruments of work, as symbols of responsibility, as signs of control. His hands are tied to his identity as a provider, a protector, a doer. But when his hand is held with intention, it tells him he can rest. It tells him he does not have to always fight. It tells him he can, for a moment, simply be human. Holding hands is not a small act. It is a declaration. It is a public and private message at the same time. When you hold a man's hand, you are saying, I choose you. You are saying, I stand with you. You are saying, even in silence, even in the chaos, I will not let go. This is why something so simple carries such deep power. Psychology reveals that hand-holding has a direct effect on stress levels. When the hand is touched, the body reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, and increases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. That means in the very moment you hold his hand, you are not just creating emotional connection. You are literally calming his body, lowering his stress, and giving him peace. Without words, you become the safe place his nervous system has been searching for. The beauty of the hand is also in its vulnerability. Think about it. We use our hands to guard, to protect, to fight. But when someone holds our hand, that power softens. In that moment, strength meets gentleness. Control surrenders to connection. And for a man, that shift is powerful. Because in his hand, he is used to holding tools, responsibilities, and burdens. But when his hand is held, for once, he is the one being held. And deep down, every man needs that reminder. There is also something symbolic about the hand. It represents direction. It represents the path we walk. To hold a man's hand is to walk beside him, not behind, not ahead, but together. It is a physical promise of partnership. It whispers to him, you are not walking through life alone. And for someone who may silently carry weight on his shoulders, that message can be life-changing. Consider this, many people underestimate hand-holding because it seems ordinary. But the ordinary moments often carry the most extraordinary meaning. The times you reach for his hand in a crowd, the times you slip your hand into his when no one is watching, the times you squeeze his palm when he feels uncertain. These are not empty gestures. They are psychological anchors. They remind him again and again that someone is by his side. And this truth is not just about passion. It is about grounding. Passion may spark quickly, but grounding keeps the flame alive. A touch on the hand grounds him. It roots him. It tells him he is safe to stand tall, safe to breathe, safe to face whatever is ahead. Because no matter how strong he appears, inside he still longs for reassurance. And the hand is where reassurance begins. Never underestimate how deeply the hand can awaken desire too. Desire is not always loud, not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, born from the simplest connection. When your fingers brush against his, when you interlock palms, when you rest your hand gently on his, these small touches awaken something primal. They remind him that intimacy is not only physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual, it is psychological. The hand carries memory. Long after words are forgotten, the body remembers touch. That is why even years later, people recall how it felt when someone held their hand during a difficult time. The memory lingers, not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. That is the true power of this simple, overlooked place. So when you touch a man's hand, you are not just making contact with his skin, you are speaking to his nervous system. You are speaking to his psychology. You are speaking to his unspoken need for connection. You are telling him he is not alone in the fight, not alone in the journey, not alone in the silence. The hand may be ordinary, but in truth, it is extraordinary. Because when touched with intention, it is the place where connection begins, where desire awakens, and where the walls around a man's heart quietly start to fall. The hand is where connection begins, but the shoulder is where strength is touched. The shoulder is not just a part of the body, it is a symbol. It represents weight, responsibility, and endurance. It is where burdens are carried, where effort is shown, where battles are silently won. And when you touch a man's shoulder, you are speaking directly to the place where he carries his world. Think about it. From childhood, the phrase has always been the same: carry it on your shoulders. It is where backpacks hang, where responsibilities rest, where the physical and emotional load of life is imagined to sit. For a man, his shoulders are more than bones and muscles. They are his silent testimony that he can bear what life throws at him. But even the strongest shoulders grow tired. And that is why a touch there is so powerful. A touch on the shoulder is more than contact. It is recognition. It says, I see the weight you are carrying. It says, you don't have to bear this alone. It says, even the strongest deserve rest. And for a man who may rarely hear those words, the touch itself becomes the message. The psychology behind the shoulder is profound. When touched gently, it signals support. It reduces the sense of isolation that comes with responsibility. The body interprets it as reassurance, a reminder that the burden is shared. When touched firmly, it communicates belief that he is capable, belief that he is strong enough, belief that someone trusts him. The shoulder in this way becomes a channel for both comfort and confidence. There is something deeply human about the shoulder-to-shoulder connection. In sports, teammates walk off the field with arms draped across each other's shoulders. In battle, soldiers march side by side, shoulder to shoulder. In friendship, in brotherhood, in love, the shoulder symbolizes unity. To touch a man's shoulder is to step into his struggle, to say, we are in this together. And this truth matters even more in moments of silence. Words may fail, encouragement may sound empty, but a touch on the shoulder never does. Imagine a man facing doubt, weighed down by pressure, unsure if he can keep going. A hand on his shoulder at that moment tells him more than speeches ever could. It tells him he is not fighting alone. It tells him he is seen. It tells him he has someone who believes in him even when he doesn't believe in himself. Desire also awakens here, but in a unique way. The shoulder is a place of both strength and vulnerability. It is strength because it represents power and responsibility, but it is vulnerable because it is where he carries invisible burdens. When touched with care, the message is intimate. It says, I see the part of you the world overlooks. That kind of intimacy draws him closer, not just physically, but emotionally. Think about how often people forget this simple place. They chase after grand gestures, yet they miss the quiet language of the shoulder. Resting your hand there during conversation, brushing it lightly when standing, or close, squeezing it gently during difficult moments. These are not accidents. These are anchors. Each one plants a seed of connection in his mind, reminding him again and again that he is not carrying life by himself. The shoulder also holds symbolic direction. It is where arms extend, where paths are reached, where actions begin. To touch it is to touch the place that leads him forward. It is like whispering without words, you are strong enough to continue, and I am here beside you. That blend of encouragement and presence creates a bond words cannot duplicate. Psychologists often describe touch as a regulator. It calms the body, balances the mind, and restores emotional stability. When placed on the shoulder, it works like a signal of grounding. It reduces tension, lowers stress, and creates a sense of safety. For a man whose shoulders feel heavy with expectation, that grounding can be the difference between giving up and moving forward. But beyond the science lies the soul. The shoulder is where a man wants to be understood. He may not say it, but deep inside he longs for someone to notice the silent weight he carries. And when that weight is acknowledged, when that shoulder is touched with sincerity, something inside him releases. He feels seen. He feels valued. He feels that his effort, often invisible to the world, is finally recognized. So never underestimate this simple place. The shoulder is not just muscle and bone. It is the language of recognition. It is the meeting point of strength and vulnerability. It is the place where reassurance and encouragement can be given without speaking a word. When you touch a man's shoulder, you are not just making physical contact. You are lifting unseen weight, or you are calming hidden battles. You are sending a message that says, your struggle is shared. Your strength is honored. You do not carry this alone. That is why the shoulder matters. It is the unspoken reminder that even the strongest deserve support. And in the quiet language of touch, it is the place where strength finds comfort and where connection turns into unshakable trust. The shoulder is where strength is touched, but the back is where the soul finds rest. The back is more than just a physical surface. It is a canvas of human vulnerability. It is the place we cannot see ourselves, the place that is always exposed, always unguarded, always carried in silence. And when you touch a man's back, you are touching the part of him that trusts you enough to let you stand behind him. Think about what the back represents. It is where burdens rest. It is where tension builds. It is where stress hides when words cannot express it. The back is the body's silent record of every responsibility, every struggle, every sleepless night. And that is why a touch there has so much power. It is not just comfort, it is healing. When your hand rests on a man's back, it sends an unspoken message, I've got you. Those 3 words are rarely spoken out loud, yet they are desperately needed. The back is the place of blind trust, because he cannot see you there. He cannot predict what you will do. But when the touch is gentle, reassuring, deliberate, his body understands that someone is guarding the space he cannot guard himself. That kind of reassurance goes deeper than any promise. Psychology explains this clearly. The nervous system interprets touch on the back as protection. From an evolutionary perspective, our backs were always the most vulnerable in times of danger. To have someone stand behind you and place a hand there is to feel shielded, to feel safe. And safety is the foundation of intimacy. Safety is what allows desire, trust, and closeness to grow. For a man, this matters even more. He spends his life facing forward, facing goals, facing challenges, facing responsibilities. Rarely does he allow himself to stop and rest. Rarely does he admit that his back aches from the invisible weight he carries. But when someone touches his back, especially with intention, it tells him that he does not always have to be the shield. It tells him that even protectors deserve to be protected. There is also a unique intimacy in the back. Unlike the face or the hands, the back is not something we control or display. It is offered unconsciously. To touch it is to touch a place of unspoken surrender. A hand on the back during conversation, a gentle stroke when walking behind him, a steady palm between his shoulders when he feels uncertain. All of these carry more than physical meaning. They tell him he is supported not just emotionally, but physically, tangibly, undeniably. And let us not forget the power of encouragement that lives in this simple gesture. How often have you seen a hand placed on someone's back as they are pushed forward, guided, or celebrated? It is the silent cheer, the wordless push, the unspoken "you can do this." For a man, that encouragement fuels confidence more than praise ever could, because it is not just heard, it is felt in his body. Desire also stirs in the back, but in a softer, deeper way. The back is a wide space of vulnerability, a place that feels safe only when trust exists. To touch it is to say, I know you, I see the weight you carry, and I am here with you. That kind of intimacy does not just awaken attraction, it awakens loyalty. It tells him he is not just wanted, but understood. And understanding is what makes desire last. Notice how natural it feels to guide someone with a hand on the back. In crowded places, it says, I will lead you through safely. In quiet moments, it says, you are not walking alone. That instinct to guide and reassure through the back is not accidental. It is written into our psychology. And when done with care, it creates unshakable connection. The back also holds tension. Every worry, every stress, every unspoken fear sits there, quietly building. That is why even the smallest touch, gentle pressure between the shoulders, a light trace down the spine, releases something unexplainable. It calms the nervous system. It tells the body it can breathe again. It gives him the freedom to let go of what he holds so tightly. This is why the back is not to be overlooked. It is not just muscle and bone. It is memory, responsibility, and vulnerability woven together. When you touch it, you are not simply touching skin. You are entering the unseen story of his life. And when your touch is intentional, you remind him that his story does not have to be carried alone. So remember this, the back is the place of trust. To touch it is to step into the unseen. To rest your hand there is to say without words, you are safe to move forward because I am behind you. And for a man who has carried too much, that message can mean everything. The hand builds connection. The shoulder honors strength, but the back, this is where reassurance lives. This is where silent battles are soothed. And this is where a man finally feels that someone is guarding the parts of him he cannot guard himself. The back is where trust is carried, but the neck is where vulnerability is revealed. Few places on the body speak with such raw honesty. The neck is delicate, unprotected, and close to the pulse of life itself. To touch it is to enter a space of surrender, a space where defenses fade and closeness deepens. Think for a moment about what the neck represents. It is the bridge between the mind and the body, between thought and feeling. It is where words are spoken, where breath is drawn, where life is sustained. For a man, it is also where instinct and vulnerability collide, because the neck has always been a place of protection. In moments of danger, it is the first place guarded. In moments of closeness, it is the first place offered. That is why touch here is so powerful. It is not just contact, it is trust. When your hand rests gently on his neck, it sends a message deeper than language. You are safe enough to lower your guard. That message is not trivial. For a man who spends his life standing strong, appearing unshaken, and hiding uncertainty, to feel safe enough to surrender is a rare and profound experience. And it is in that surrender where intimacy flourishes. Psychology shows us that the neck is tied directly to the autonomic nervous system. Touch here can slow the heartbeat, calm breathing, and create relaxation in the entire body. That means a gentle stroke along the neck does not only feel good, it signals safety to the brain. It tells his nervous system that the moment is free of threat, that closeness is not dangerous, and that he is allowed to experience connection without fear. The neck also carries unspoken desire. It is a place where sensitivity is heightened, where touch lingers longer in memory, where closeness turns into awakening. A light touch on the side of the neck, a soft hold near the back, even a brief brush near the collar. All of these can ignite emotion and attraction without a single word being said, because the neck is not just physical, it is psychological. It represents exposure, and exposure creates intimacy. For a man, this matters deeply. He may not voice his need for vulnerability, but his body still longs for it. The world tells him to armor up, to protect, to never reveal weakness, yet the neck is the one place where that armor cannot exist. To allow someone to touch it is to admit, I trust you with the most fragile part of me. And when that trust is honored, the bond becomes unbreakable. Think about how naturally people lean their heads into someone's shoulder when they feel safe. Think about how the head bows when trust is given, how the neck is exposed when comfort is found. These gestures are not accidental, they are primal. They are written into human behavior as signs of closeness, and when you touch a man's neck, you awaken those instincts. You tell him without speaking that he is seen not just as strong, but as human. There is also something profoundly grounding about the neck. When touched gently, it calms the racing mind. It pulls attention away from chaos and into the present moment. It says, right now, nothing else matters. And for a man who spends his days thinking, planning, and pushing forward, that grounding is more than comfort. It is liberation. Desire born from the neck is different from desire born anywhere else. It is not loud or reckless. It is quiet, intimate, and consuming, because the neck is close to the heartbeat, close to breath, close to life itself. A touch there does not just awaken attraction, it awakens awareness. It reminds him of his aliveness, of the closeness of another, of the beauty of surrender. But the neck is not only about passion, it is about trust. It is about reassurance. It is about showing him that even in his most vulnerable state, he is safe with you. That safety builds more than attraction. It builds loyalty, devotion, and lasting intimacy. Because when someone feels safe enough to reveal their vulnerability, they feel safe enough to stay. So never overlook this place. The neck is not just skin and muscle. It is the meeting point of mind and body, strength and surrender, power and vulnerability. It is the place where the human spirit admits, I do not need to fight right now, I can simply be. When you touch a man's neck, you are not just creating sensation. You are giving him permission to rest, to feel, to let go. You are reminding him that even the strongest do not always have to guard themselves. And in that reminder, you awaken something far greater than attraction. You awaken trust, intimacy, and the deepest form of connection. The neck is where vulnerability opens, but the chest is where the truth of a man lives. The chest is not just muscle or bone. It is the home of the heart, the rhythm of life, the center of everything he feels but rarely speaks. To touch a man's chest is to touch the deepest symbol of who he is. Think about it. The chest is where the heartbeat echoes. It is where breath rises and falls. It is where the body reveals emotions without a single word. A racing heart when nervous, a steady rhythm when calm, a heavy weight when burdened, a soft expansion when in love. The chest carries what the mouth often hides, and when your hand rests there, you are not only touching the body, you are speaking to the soul. For a man, this place carries more meaning than most realize. Since childhood, he has been taught to hide what he feels. He may wear a strong face, he may project confidence, but his chest still reveals his truth. It rises when he is anxious, it tightens when he is stressed, it softens when he feels safe, and in the rare moments when someone touches it with care, it tells him, "You don't have to hide from me, I see you." The psychology of this is powerful. A touch on the chest is interpreted by the nervous system as an act of closeness, of intimacy, of grounding. It is as if the body says, "You are safe here," because the chest is where life is most fragile. The heart beats just beneath the surface. The lungs fill and release with every breath. To allow someone to touch this space is to say, "I trust you with my very life." That is no small gift. When your hand rests on his chest, it slows him. It calms his breathing. It steadies his rhythm. The touch tells his body to relax, his mind to release, his spirit to open. It is not simply physical, it is emotional regulation. It is healing without words. For a man who spends his days carrying weight, leading, and protecting, that moment of grounding can feel like freedom. But the chest also symbolizes pride. It is where he stands tall, where he shows confidence, where he carries his identity. And when your touch is there, it does not weaken that pride. It honors it. It tells him that you see not only his strength, but also his heart behind the strength. And that recognition is what every man longs for, to be seen fully, not just as a provider, not just as strong, but as human. Desire flows from the chest as well, because it is a place of both strength and vulnerability, a place close to his heartbeat. A hand pressed lightly against it can awaken his awareness of closeness. It draws his attention to the fact that his heart is beating faster, not from fear, but from presence, from intimacy, from connection. Desire is not always sparked in loud or obvious ways. It often begins here quietly with the reminder that his heart is alive. Think about moments of deep embrace. Why do they mean so much? Because when two people hold each other close, chest to chest, they are literally aligning the rhythms of their hearts. The body begins to synchronize. Breath finds a similar pace. Stress begins to melt. It is not just physical, it is psychological harmony. The chest, when touched or pressed close, reminds him that he does not beat alone. There is also memory in this place. We may forget words spoken to us, but we never forget the moments when someone rested a hand on our chest and said nothing at all. Because the silence was louder than words, the body remembers that someone connected with the center of its being, or that memory lingers long after everything else fades. To touch his chest is to touch his truth. It is to touch the part of him that cannot lie, the part that cannot hide, the part that reveals itself with every beat. And when you do it with care, when you do it with intention, you awaken not only desire, but devotion. You remind him that love is not just about passion. It is about being seen at the deepest level. So remember, the chest is not just muscle, not just strength. It is the gateway to the heart, and the heart is the place where real connection lives. To touch a man there is to tell him, "I see the man behind the armor. I hear the rhythm of your life. I honor the truth of who you are." That message cannot be faked. It cannot be replaced by words. It can only be felt. And once felt, it cannot be forgotten. Because a man may forget the sentences spoken to him, but he will never forget the moment when your hand told his heart that he was safe, valued, and truly alive. The chest is where the heartbeat speaks, but silence is where the soul listens. Words can inspire, words can persuade, but silence reaches deeper. In silence, the unspoken becomes louder than any sentence. In silence, presence itself becomes the message. Think about it. The moments we remember most are rarely filled with endless words. They are filled with stillness. They are filled with presence. A look held just a little longer. A hand resting without rushing away. A quiet moment when no one needs to speak, yet everything is understood. This is the power of silence. It strips away noise and allows the truth of connection to rise. Psychology has shown that silence is not empty. The human brain is wired to search for meaning in the spaces between words. When nothing is spoken, the body leans in closer, the heart listens harder, and the spirit feels more deeply. That is why silence can be so powerful. It magnifies emotion, it amplifies touch, it deepens the bond. For a man, this is especially important. He may live in a world that demands words from him constantly, decisions, explanations, directions. He may be expected to lead, to answer, to provide clarity. Yet silence is the one space where he does not have to explain himself. He does not have to perform. He does not have to wear the mask of certainty. In silence, he is allowed to simply exist, and that is one of the most powerful gifts you can give him. Presence is the companion of silence, because silence without presence is emptiness, but silence with presence is connection. Presence means being fully there, without distraction, without pretense, without the weight of past or future. It is the choice to give your attention completely, to let him feel that in this moment, he is the only one who matters. That kind of presence is rare, and because it is rare, it is unforgettable. Imagine resting your hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat and saying nothing at all. No explanations, no questions, just being there. That silence carries more weight than 100 words ever could. Or it tells him, you do not need to explain who you are. I already see you. This is not weakness. It is strength. To sit in silence with someone requires courage. It requires the courage to let go of control, to let go of the need to fill space with words, to simply trust that presence itself is enough. And when that trust is given, the bond deepens. Because in that stillness, you are saying, I am here with you. Not for what you say, not for what you do, but for who you are. The psychology of presence shows that it rewires connection. When two people are fully present with each other, their brains begin to mirror one another. Heart rates synchronize, breathing aligns, emotional states become shared. This is not fantasy, it is biology. It is the body's way of saying, I belong here, I am safe here. That is why moments of deep presence linger in memory. They touch something primal inside us. And silence does something else. It creates space for the unspoken emotions to surface. So much of what a man feels remains unsaid, not because he has nothing to say, but because he has no safe place to release it. Silence offers that place. It tells him that he does not need to rush, does not need to explain, does not need to put his feelings into perfect words. He can simply feel, he can simply be. And in a world that tells him to always do more, to always prove more, that simple permission can feel like salvation. Presence and silence together create intimacy that no amount of talking can replace, because words can be misunderstood. Or explanations can be doubted, promises can be broken, but presence never lies. Silence never fakes. They are pure. They are honest. They are undeniable. Think of it this way. Noise surrounds us everywhere. Distractions fight for our attention. Voices compete to be heard. But when someone chooses silence with you, when someone chooses presence with you, it cuts through the noise. It becomes a signal louder than sound. It says, in this moment, you are my priority. Nothing else matters more. That is the kind of message that builds unshakable connection. So remember, silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. Presence is not passive. It is powerful. Together, they form the most intimate language we know, a language that does not need translation, a language that the heart understands instantly, a language that awakens not only desire, but trust, safety, and devotion. When you give a man the gift of silence and presence, you give him the one thing he cannot find anywhere else, the freedom to be himself without masks, without armor, without fear. And when that happens, connection moves beyond words. It moves into something eternal, something unforgettable. Silence and presence are the unspoken language of connection, but there is something even greater they awaken, the human spirit. Beneath every desire, beneath every touch, beneath every heartbeat lies a deeper hunger, the hunger to be alive, to be seen, to be valued, to be remembered. This is the ultimate truth of human psychology. We do not live only for survival. We live for meaning. Think about it. A man can achieve wealth, success, recognition, and yet still feel empty. He can have a busy life, but not a full one. Because what the spirit longs for is not applause, not possessions, not endless activity. The spirit longs for connection that is real, for love that is true, for moments that awaken the soul and remind us that life is more than routine. Every touch, every word, every moment of presence has the power to either numb the spirit or awaken it. And when the spirit is awakened, something extraordinary happens. The body feels stronger, the mind feels clearer, the heart feels lighter. Suddenly, the world is no longer just a place to survive. It is a place to live fully, to love deeply, to give fearlessly. The human spirit thrives on recognition. Not recognition from the crowd, but recognition from someone who truly sees us. When a man feels that his inner world is honored, that his strength is noticed, that his vulnerability is safe, his spirit rises. It begins to shine brighter. It begins to believe in its worth. That is the power of deep connection. It does not just affect the body, it transforms the soul. But here is the truth. Most people walk through life asleep. They follow routines. They chase goals. They live on autopilot. They forget that beneath all the noise, there is a fire waiting to burn. And that fire is only awakened when someone touches not just the skin, but the soul. That fire is awakened when presence is so strong, when silence is so deep that the spirit remembers who it is. The reason connection matters so much is because it touches this spiritual core. The chest, the neck, the hands, the back, the shoulders, they are all gateways, but what they open is not just desire, it is awakening. They remind a man that he is more than his duties, more than his performance, more than the armor he wears. They remind him that he is alive, that he is human, that he matters. And here lies the most powerful truth of all. When the spirit is awakened, it gives back. A man whose spirit has been touched, whose heart has been recognized, becomes more generous, more loving, more devoted. He carries that energy into everything he does. His strength grows, his purpose sharpens, his relationships deepen. Awakening the spirit does not just change a moment, it changes a life. This is why the smallest actions often carry the greatest weight. A gentle hand, a moment of silence, a gaze held with intention. These things seem small, but to the human spirit, they are everything. Because the spirit does not measure love in grand gestures. It measures love in presence, in sincerity, in truth. And when it receives these, it flourishes. What this means is simple but profound. You hold more power than you realize. You hold the power to awaken, to heal, to inspire simply by how you show up. You do not need perfect words. You do not need endless effort. You only need authenticity, courage, and presence. That alone is enough to spark something eternal inside another human being. Ask yourself, what kind of presence do you bring into someone's life? Do you leave them heavier or lighter? Do you add to their noise or bring them peace? Do you touch only their body, or do you reach their spirit? Because at the end of everything, that is what will be remembered. Not the exact words spoken, or not the specific moments of passion, but the way their spirit felt in your presence. Did it feel alive? Did it feel safe? Did it feel seen? The human spirit is resilient, but it is also fragile. It can carry great weight, yet it longs for gentle recognition. And when it finds that recognition, when it feels that connection, it awakens in ways that transform not only the individual, but everyone around them. Because an awakened spirit radiates light. It becomes impossible to ignore. It inspires others to awaken too. So let this truth sink deep. Every moment is a chance to awaken or to numb, to build or to break, to inspire or to overlook. Choose wisely, choose presence, choose sincerity, choose to see, to feel, to connect. Because in the end, it is not just about desire, not just about touch, not just about silence. It is about awakening the spirit, the part of us that outlives the body, the part of us that carries meaning, the part of us that makes life worth living. And when you awaken that in someone, you do not just give them pleasure. You give them purpose. You give them strength. Or you give them life. And that is the most powerful gift one human being can ever offer another.